would be.
That's just my personal opinion.
So 4 should be 2.
4 should be 2 and 5 should be 3, if you all could see your way to agree with that.
I'd say 3 should be 4.
Okay?
Which leaves us the original number 2 and original number 6, as well as the addition of the consortium number 7.
So the original number 2 would become a different number.
Yes,
Correct.
probably
Yeah, maybe
5 or
number
6.
5 or 6, yes.
Making it 6.
Okay? Now, the one we just came up with about consortium and the authority, you want that one to be something other than 7? It's either 6 or 7, down to our current number.
Yeah, it's good. It was 7 just because it
Okay.
Yeah.
So 1 remains 1, 2 becomes 6, 3 becomes 4, 4 becomes 2, 5 becomes 3, 6 remains a 6, and 7 remains a 7. Acceptable, members of the board?
Yes. And then you said you'd redraft the report to in that order?
Yes. And to include them in the summary in that order also. Yes.
And the ADS consortium will be the last phase too, or?
I'm sorry, say
The
again?
ADS
Is
consortium.
that a recommendation or is that an activity?
No,
It's an
that's in
activity.
the activity report.
Okay.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Any other comments, members of the board? Very well, do I have a motion to approve?
The motion is to approve with.
With the
edits.
edits we just made, with the edits we just made, and the actions to include certain information about our collaboration and partnership with the other the other U.S. activities, and Ganapati's information about other activities. Well, I guess that's good. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve those edits.
All right, Bob is, do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Mary Alice, do we have any further discussion, members of the board? Very well, hearing none, all signify approval by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very well, carries. So we will get this document out to the legislature and also to you. Now, we can send this out as long as we send it, so it's publicly available, correct?
Yes, once we finalize this, we'll send it out to everyone. I'll make sure to include my other email list. It'll also be posted on our website. I think that the Secretary of Commerce's office will dress it up and give it kind of the formalities that it had last year. So it won't just be, a piecemeal set of documents. Oh, great,
We'll have a
great.
link on our website too as
And Chris, you're okay, you've got everything you need from the.
I got everything down.
From the cosmetic aspect of it.
Yes, I'm fairly certain. Everyone provided updates to logos and everything, so I think we're good to go, minus kind of the final substantive edits, as well as the Secretary of Commerce's office, the comms folks.
And the
did that.
aesthetic delivery of it.
Yeah, and they will handle
Good,
that.
'cause we did that last year for you guys.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay, Randy neglected to mention that to me.
Well, the reason I'm asking is that the staffer on my team who rolled up the sleeves between Christmas and New Year's did it while he was on holiday, so I want to make sure that we don't
Okay.
put him in that position again.
Okay,
And we're happy to volunteer our services because he's still on my team. But he will be on holiday again during that time, so we.
So
will
we
not
need
be
to
doing
do
our
it
report
ASAP.
So
Yeah.
the report may not be finished until the first of the year?
No,
What you're
so
telling me?
no, we
like-
just have to use
No,
No,
it
we-
has to be in by
ASAP.
we have a week,
Yeah.
1 week, it has to be done before the end of next week.
I can make these immediately.
And I have a few more to add to. The only thing I want to do is make sure, make a note, I'm going to change my, you have my Maryland address for the company, not the Virginia address.
Okay.
So if I'm a Virginia legislature, I'm like, what is that Maryland company doing here?
Yeah.
Okay.
But given the current draft that you have, you should have no need for, talk to me afterwards.
Okay, yeah, we'll connect.
Did everybody that is represented here, did all of your companies update your profiles, your information, number of employees, your annual income, and all this stuff? If there was anything that we needed to update? Excellent, good. It's kind of hard for me to go out and ask Marshall to beat up on the consortium members if the authority members didn't do it either. I did, well, wait a minute, clean up your backyard. All right, great, guys. All right, so we have now approved this. We know the schedule. We're going to get something to her next week. We'll get it cleaned up, and then as soon as you know, you'll get out something to us, let us know what's going on to the legislature, right? All right, then let's move on into Roman numeral 7 if we finish 6. And that is, we would like to find a way, we don't know if it's going to be successful or not, to present the annual report to the legislature or some portions thereof, because we don't think that necessarily all the individuals within the legislature that should read it, might read it, could read it, or be interested in reading it, will read it. And I'm going to leave that to you, Maureen, because you knew better than anybody who's going to do what where. We were just
I can
wondering.
give that some thought. I mean, off the top of my head, generally, once they're in session, really the only occasions for presentations are in the context of particular legislation. I am not close enough to it now, and frankly, am happy to be a little further, to be aware, in fact, Marshall may be more aware of any energy legislation that might be coming down the pipe or under discussion.
My own recommendation would be to target specific committees.
I was gonna say that the Commerce and Labor Committees on
So
both
like
sides,
whoever's jurisdiction is energy,
and they have energy
economic
subcommittees.
development, I
Yeah.
would look to target that, and I would, recommend you have some
Yeah,
reach
each,
out
the
to
Senate and the House both have Commerce and Labor Committees.
leadership.
And,
You might want to include the leadership, at least, to make sure that they're invited to whatever you do.
Any education focused groups?
Yes.
That.
There are, if you go to the education committees, they generally have workforce development
Yeah,
subject
we'll be,
subs. Chris,
we'll be
that's,
looking at some outreach there, of course, on the workforce agenda.
that's
How about
something
the
that you
STEM
can
agenda?
probably do pretty easily, is just go into the committee structure and figure out
Sure.
which committees and subs have jurisdiction over energy issues, including workforce, which is critical, and make sure that, that they get a special, I don't know whether the plan is to send it to everyone, but certainly a special delivery to those with particular interest.
Why don't we send it to, why don't we, want to identify all the committees and all the relevant committees, send it to a special one, just as Marina suggested, and offer a presentation if they're so inclined and interested.
I think that's a good idea. Now, if the consortium actually gets a meeting put together that's going to be in town during session, then we might have a session or a piece of that meeting,
Yeah, embedded.
a breakfast or something, opportunity
On the conference
to,
agenda.
on the
Yeah,
conference
yeah,
agenda.
we're
That would be my
figuring
thought.
all that out right now. Trying to get a handle on what's the best way, when they start for their 60 days, I guess, January 13th, when they go all
Yeah.
out. But it's like every other state capital in the country, all kinds of things go on. And so the hard part is getting on someone's agenda. But on the other hand, the agendas go from 7 in the morning to 10 at night. So there's a variety of mechanisms you can use to try and reach who you want to reach. So we're sorting that out right now. I figured out once we are a little clearer on our own agenda and who we need to be talking to and informing, then we'll have a better sense of that. I don't think I have any issues with somehow combining the authority and the consortium on that. My only, very honestly, the worry is the role of the authority vis-a-vis state agency. I don't know if agency is the right word, but whatever the authority is in terms of its connection with the state, as opposed to the consortium, which is by the statute an independent body, whether there's any complications there. I just think we need to understand that as well, which we're trying to take a look at.
All right. I would just like, to the extent that it isn't a conflict or a problem for you, for the authority to be engaged, even if it's nothing more to identify the authority's existence or what role we're trying to do, and then just step back and let you talk about the consortium as an independent entity which was formed by the authority. This way, because otherwise if they just hear from the consortium, then they probably wonder, what the hell is what does the authority do? Where are they? Where are they in all this? And I would rather answer that question up front than have people questioning where the authority is and what we're doing. Because we do have some unique rules, despite the fact that you have, the consortium have the lion's share of the activity that's being conducted.
So that makes sense.
Is that okay with everybody on the board? I mean, I just don't want us to lose our role and position in all this.
I'd just like some clarity.
You're coming from the state, so you tell me how you think that
Well,
should play.
You're not lobbying for any specific legislation.
Why would
If
we come up
if
with
you
something?
were, we'd have to ask for an attorney general's opinion on whether that's allowed under the under the statute, but if you're not doing that, I don't think that's really a concern.
No, well, I can't imagine that we are, unless somebody's gonna surprise us with something over the holidays.
No, I think that our role should be to introduce our report and make them aware that this is a resource for information.
Sounds like an educational,
It's an educational.
Informative, educational thing.
As long as we stay fully firmly footed in that bucket, I think that's where our greatest asset is. A consortium that can get more tactical about how we can execute some of the recommendations.
You had it too, because if you look at the way the statute was written, by Marina knows, and you look at how that's structured, then you look at the unique role that we have and the unique role that the consortium has, and I think as long as we're defining the separation of powers, if you will, that outline what it is we're doing and what they're doing and how we are supporting it to the extent that we can, then.
Now, I would say there are a great many commissions and authorities that, while they may not generate legislation, certainly support and weigh in on legislation. I don't know if there is an ability for staff, and maybe this year is premature for us in terms of our maturity as a group, but to, and maybe we meet at some point in January, but to track legislation, to find out if there is anything in particular that we have a compelling interest in, and want to weigh in support of. It could be workforce training legislation, it could be, energy-related legislation, and we could go to the podium in support of, that would be, leadership's role to say, we are this, you've created us to do this, in light of our mission, this is our view on this particular piece of legislation. And I have not visited our statute in a while to double check whether that's within the scope of our allotted charge, and I don't have it committed to memory, but.
and I don't know the legal ramifications or nuances either, but it's something we want to coordinate carefully with the governor's policy office to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
That's right.
Since these are recommendations to the governor and the general assembly.
Yeah.
Right, I agree totally. So what we'll take an action, Chris and I, to find out what that is. We'll get back with you, Maureen, and everybody, and then with the entire board about what we've discovered. And in our next meeting, we'll lay out what all the different legislations are that are being considered in 2016, and determine what, if any, assuming we can, work closely with the governor's office and the attorney general, assuming that if we are interested, can we weigh in, provide our expert opinion on that, said legislation. Sound reasonable in the course of action?
That's been my experience with other body authorities too.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, with apologies if we leave.
Understand.
Meeting across town. We're all in Richmond, we try to take advantage of being there and do a bunch of things. So thank you all very much for your continued support and interest. We'll look to work as close together as possible. Finally, hope you all have a very happy, joyous, and safe holiday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You too, sir. Listen, we'll be in touch next week. to talk about
Absolutely.
it.
Sounds
Thank you.
good.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
We had the pleasure of meeting with he and the chair of the consortium, Chris and I, about 6 weeks ago, and just talked about things they're doing so we can make sure we're on the reporting schedule. There was nothing any more than just making sure there's ways in which we can share information so that we're not doing something they don't know about and they're not doing something we don't know about. Okay, then we'll figure out how that's gonna work. We have this related now to how we're gonna handle next year about getting the information related to what, if any legislations we wanna weigh in on and get approval to see if that's possible. We're also gonna start with the Commerce and Labor Committees and other committees that are relevant to what we do and make determinations. We're gonna send them a unique copy, and then we're gonna ask them, I'll let them know we'd be willing to make a presentation if they would like to. And I'd like to encourage them to hear from us, right, if that's possible. So the next one will be meeting dates in 2016. Given the fact that we were having some difficulties with meeting dates and everything, we have often scheduled dates as we've set here, and people have pulled out their calendars as they exist now, and then we've set 4 dates. We have to meet at least 4 times. We could meet on more often, and that may be required next year, but nonetheless, And so those dates have had to change for a number of different things after the fact. So my inclination is, if you're acceptable to this, members of the board, is to have you send out a doodle poll, or however you call those things, to ask you for the dates that work best for you in the first quarter of 2016, and then on to the second, third, and fourth quarter, so that we have some flexibility in our dates, and you've got a chance